Hi there everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Here.
Excellent. We are short on time, so I will try to be brief. I have been living with ALS for the last 5 years. To lay it out quite bluntly, without the technology I am currently using, I would be dead. Instead, I am able to be a father and husband, run a foundation, and lead an extremely productive life. One of our foundation's core missions is to provide and develop innovative technology for people with disabilities. Using technology to help people with physical limitations is certainly not a new concept, but I think it's important to understand what drives innovation. How many of you are using touch screens, text-to-speak, smart home programs, or predictive typing? All of these technologies were initially created as a solution for people with physical limitations. Also, most of you are not aware, but your eye movements are being monitored, at ATMs and elsewhere, through the use of eye tracking technology. I used eye tracking to type this speech. I operate my Microsoft Surface Pro tablet just like you ordinary people, and I'm able to control my entire house. Most recently, Team Gleason has helped Microsoft develop a program that allows me to drive my wheelchair with my eyes. Someday relatively soon, everyone will use their eyes to help them type, as well as drive. When that day comes, remember you saw it here first. Today you will see another example of how we are trying to innovate through virtual and augmentative reality. We believe we can push past the physical limitations of current technology. Soon, I will share experiences using my eyes, or even my thoughts, while engaging with my son and others in a digital reality. Like my current technology, if it can enhance the human connection, it will be liberating. The point is that I see investing in leading-edge medical technology as not only important because it can be a literal lifeline for people, but because these innovations from medical technology will eventually impact the broader, global marketplace. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I'm Michael Hecht with Greater New Orleans, Inc., and welcome everybody to the great state of New Orleans. I want to thank Mayor Landrieu, whose essential leadership really didn't just bring New Orleans back from one of the greatest man-made disasters, but actually has brought it back better than ever. And of course, Steve Gleason, one of the true heroes of Katrina, for if he had not blocked that kick on September 25th, 2006, I don't think we'd be sitting here today, but now is a hero in so many ways far beyond. To sum up what we're going to talk about today, it's the confluence of technology, engineering, art, science, gaming that will allow Steve Gleason or any other individual with mobility issues to do what we want Steve to be able to do, which is to be able to play with his son in virtual reality. That's how profound this confluence is. And so with that, let me please introduce our panelists we have here today. I guess it's not a game, I guess you're our speakers that we have here today. My good friend Matt Findley, who is the president of In Exile Gaming, recently relocated here from Southern California. In Exile has raised more money from crowdfunding than any gaming company in history. And I think, Matt, you've been in gaming for about 3 decades now, right?
Just about.
You don't look a day older for it. So welcome. Big round of applause for Matt Findley.
Thank you.
And well, you know, if you got the looks, now we got the brains over here. First, I want to welcome Promit Roy, who is a software architect from the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in the Department of Neurology, and he is the co-founder of the Kata Project, which is where neuroscience, technology, and the arts come together at Johns Hopkins. Very compelling. And to his right, Dr. Omad Ahmad, who is the Director of Innovative Biomedical Engineering at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, Department of Neurology. And he described the Kata Project as Disney Studios at Johns Hopkins. Not bad. So to give some general sense, I'd like to first turn to Matt, ask you, what's the current state of VR and AR in the gaming world today?
Yeah, we're living in exciting times. I think the first time I saw VR technology was 1991-ish, a little project called Dactyl Nightmare. And the rigs cost about 60 grand. They made about 350 of them, and that was it ever. And it was supposed to be the turning point when it was all going to happen, but it just sort of vaporized after that. And not much really happened from a consumer point of view for almost 25 years. It really wasn't until almost 2009 when we started getting augmented reality apps on phones. You could hold up your phone while you're standing in the French Quarter, and it would point an arrow to show you how to get to happy hour and very useful things like that. But just obviously the tip of the iceberg. What we're seeing now is this incredible convergence of hardware support that's never happened before in our history. We have all of these major companies that are players in it. You know, Google with their Google Glass, Microsoft's a player with their HoloLens, PlayStation VR is coming, Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive are already out on the market, available to consumers, and there's more hardware out there than has ever existed. You have to have a business model for technology to grow. The Dactyl Nightmare obviously didn't, it goes away. All of this hardware being supported by all these companies creates a tidal wave of the next thing that has the biggest factor, and that is companies developing software for it. Right. Oculus announced at GDC that they shipped 156,000 units of their dev kit. And that's just one of all those 4 or 5 different competing companies in the VR space I'm talking about. So 20 years ago, there was 20 experts in VR. And now we're talking about over 100,000 people that are living and working with the hardware every single day, developing software, solving problems for the first time, collaborating with each other, and we're able to see this giant boom in innovation that's allowing us all to develop sort of brand new technologies. When you get that combination of tremendous hardware support and tremendous software support, that's when technology really leaps forward. And we're going to see the things that these augmented reality and the virtual reality components and what software that supports them do things that are just going to melt our minds in almost no time at all.
So you think this is the moment? Now we're at that the technology and the hardware and software have all caught up with the need, and we're about to blossom.
I think this is the moment. Third time is the charm. There's been 2 cracks at it before, but this time everyone's got all
well,
their
the DeLorean was the first gull wing, and now Tesla's bringing it back, right? Thank you for that, Matt. Now I'd like to turn over to Dr. Ahmad and Promit, and I'd love for you all to talk about what you're doing at Johns Hopkins and how that research is potentially going to lead us to fulfilling the promise of allowing Steve to play with his kid in virtual reality.
Absolutely. So the Kata group, the group that I direct at Johns Hopkins, is an innovative Imagineering type group that it's mandated to push clinical care forward, okay? And we combine art and science and technology to do that. And I'm here today on this panel because of one particular technology that we developed over the course of the last 4 years, which is having enormous repercussions in many areas of society.
Sorry guys, keep going, but I'm having technical issues. Surprise, surprise.
So what this technology is that we developed is a very special type of animation, okay? And the animation is designed to give people, the ultimate goal of this animation is to give people who've lost a sense of movement, sorry, is that better? Okay. So it's designed to give people a sense of movement back who've lost it, okay? And the question for us is, why did we even want to invest in a technology like this? What is this technology? How is it developed? And I usually start this story with an anecdote that we get from patients, okay? So we developed a type of synthetic animal that's used in rehabilitative therapy after stroke injury. And what it is an animated dolphin that's connected to an exoskeletal robot to a patient who can't normally use their hand. And when the patient goes through this therapy, they don't talk to us in terms of, I just had 2 hours of intense physical or rehabilitative therapy. They say, I just spent 2 hours with Bandit the dolphin, okay? And they feel extremely connected to this animal, deeply connected to it. And one of our patients took me aside after he had a session with Bandit, and he said, Omar, when I started this, I felt very connected to this animal. But as I continued to play, I felt that I became this animal. I felt completely one with it. When I was moving my hand in this robot and watching the dolphin move around, it felt like I was swimming in the ocean and swimming in the water. And this is precisely the type of reaction, and it was unsolicited, that we actually wanted, okay? And so sort of hold on to that anecdote, and the question is, why did we develop this? Why was it important for us to make someone lose their sense of self and to be projected in an environment and another creature where they have this deep, visceral, physical response? And the answer is, this is what we needed to tap into a very amazing capacity that the brain has after brain injury for plasticity, for rewiring itself when damage has occurred. And I'm going to summarize a lot of neuroscience and clinical neurology, but it's sort of a truism that your brain has circuitry underneath it that's responsible for different things that you do, whether you're talking, whether you're speaking, whether you're moving. And the circuitry has another layer on top of it that's sort of a gain. Think of them as knobs of volume, okay? And when people suffer from brain injury, it's the circuitry that's damaged and the circuitry that we want to rewire. But unfortunately, the brain often turns up the knobs on top of it, okay? So it doesn't actually change the underlying program. What it does is it turns up the gain on it, so you're sort of forcefully doing movements that aren't correct. Mm-hmm. And if you look at speech impairments with people who have brain damage in their speech areas, they'll enunciate things very forcefully, okay? So you kind of have to ask yourself a kind of mental thought, a thought experiment, is what would you want someone to do if they've had that experience, okay, if they've had brain damage? Would you want to teach them and give therapy on the broken program, or do you want them to somehow completely rewrite it? And one idea would be to immerse someone in a language that they've never heard in their entire lives, okay? And this is kind of the basis of a lot of language learning programs, which is complete and total immersion. And what you're trying to do is tap into that underlying plasticity of the brain to rewire itself, okay? Now, this goes back to animation. So why did we develop some very visceral and physical form of computer animation and simulation? It's because we wanted the motor equivalent of babbling in a language that you have no idea how to speak to relearn. So Dr. John Krakauer, who's the clinical head of the group that I run, sort of had an intuition that if we could take a patient who had stroke and put them in the body of another animal where they knew nothing about the dynamics, where they had to relearn every subtle movement, and they had this deep, deep visceral feedback from that movement, then could we engender this wonderful plasticity to cause them to rewire their brains. And this is why we developed a simulation that combines the best of animation and physical simulation as a creature that you're kind of, and I use the word jacked into, okay? And this is why we're here today, in that all this investment...
Test. Okay. I think...
Good.
Still having trouble.
Okay. So what we're trying to do now ultimately is take this technology and do something that I think is pretty mind-blowing, and that's giving people a sense of movement who've lost it, okay? And that's why we're working now with Team Gleason and another group called Answer ALS, which is designed to take what we're ultimately planning on doing is allowing people these same experiences and creating different animals and allowing them to move in this virtual space and give them a sense of deep movement and pleasure back and interact with their family members, you know, and sort of push the technological boundaries in that realm.
And Doctor, is it right to think about this like an avatar, or is it something deeper, more profound than that?
It's a very good question. So an avatar typically in computer games is something that something is tracking your movement and you see it directly mimicking it. And the key point in everything that we're creating is physics. Mm-hmm. So we get a sense of reality by the physics around us. Okay, if you study computer animation, physics and the juiciness or squishiness of a character becomes very fundamental to getting a sense of emotion out of the character. So this is what is important about the avatar or the creature that you're jacked in, is every tiny movement, whether it's from your eyes or your hand or your foot or whatever we want to put as the input signal, you have to get a rich dynamic response. You have to feel the hydrodynamics or the aerodynamics, and that gives the sense that you're actually there in that creature.
Right, extraordinary, great. Thank you, Doctor. Promit, anything you'd like to add to that from the software engineering standpoint? What are the challenges, the biggest challenges you're engaging right now?
Well, if you go out and ask industry, how do we do this today? They really don't have an answer. We had to step back and say, okay, none of the solutions out there are going to do what we need. We have to start from ground zero. We have to develop, how, at a conceptual level, it's very easy to understand what we want to do, but then you have to actually lay it out and engineer a solution from ground up. And I think a big part of what made it possible for us is we work in the hospital with patients day to day. We can walk over, we can build a prototype and we can walk over, the wards are maybe 3 minutes walk from our office, and we can say to a patient, okay, see how it feels. Tell us what the experience is. Tell us what needs to be better. And then on top of that, we were able to work with the aquarium, the National Aquarium that's based in Baltimore. And the trainers there were incredibly useful in telling us, okay, this doesn't feel right about the animal. This doesn't feel like something that we really do. And we were really able to lean on our community in many ways to support the work and develop what we needed to develop.
That's fantastic. And Steve, I'm looking at you. Would you have a comment or final word? Great. Thank you. I'd love to hear of that.
As a final thought, I am encouraged by the technological innovation I've seen in the last 5 years, but I believe so much more can be done. Technology is a powerful tool. It can connect us to people thousands of miles away, but can potentially separate us from those who are standing right in front of us. Like any instrument of power, technology must be utilized and implemented with extreme care and wisdom. We must keep the human factor in mind as we develop technology and the procedures and therapies that follow the technology. I believe the engineers and developers here at the Collision Conference are doing just that, keeping the humanity in innovation. Thanks for having me today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your final thoughts. And I think that there are so many lessons here today, but keeping the humanity in. And I also want to remind everybody of a tweet that you sent out, Steve, I think last October, when you were honored and put into the Hall of Fame. It was at another Atlanta game, and we blocked another punt against Atlanta. And the tweet that Steve sent out, I guess directly to Atlanta, but indirectly to all of us in the entire world, was #never punt. Never give up. Everything is possible.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for that. So everybody, we have a big round of applause for all of our panelists here. Matthew Findley from In Exile, Dr. Omad Ahmad and Promit Roy from Johns Hopkins Kata, and Steve Gleason, modern day hero. Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.